Okay, I'd like to welcome to the process of hip hop my man Jeff from Rhymecology. What's going on, man?
Peace. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for joining the process of hip hop, man. We've been trying kind of almost playing, IG version of phone tag, trying to get this episode squared away, man. I've been definitely wanting to link up with Rhymecology, man. So again, I'm so glad that you're here. And for those of you that don't know, if you're listening, watching, excellent. But Rhymecology again is multifaceted. I don't even want to describe you as a coach because that would be just kind of the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
Describe for us, man, what all encompasses what you do at Rhymecology, man.
All right. So, like within hip hop, that you have your tree, right? So hip hop's a tree, and the main four branches we all know. Um, Rhymecology itself has a tree with two main branches off of it. The two branches are the art of hip hop lyrics, which is basically the art of rhyming. Um, and upon that branch, I teach people, I do presentations, I do workshops, I'm a rhyme coach. I teach people how to write better rhymes. You send me your rhymes, I go through them line by line with a fine tooth comb, counting every syllable, making sure you have your multis, your internals, making sure you have your wordplay, all that stuff. And it's not just for MCs, it's for a lot of singer songwriters actually hire me because, MCs, they're too proud to,
Yeah, of course.
we know. So a lot of singer songwriters, but I'm a master rhymer, I guess. So I teach people that. And the other branch is hip hop healing, hip hop therapy. For 15 years, I worked in Long Beach, South Los Angeles, Compton as a mental health professional. And most of the time, or at least a lot of the time, I was using hip hop as a tool to connect with youth. So the ethos, the mission statement of Rhymecology is to use hip hop lyrics and culture to help people express, discover, and create themselves and live their best life. Taking all the positive facets of hip hop, taking all the therapeutic facets, taking all of the things that we know and love, but giving that to someone in, like, whether it's counseling or coaching, infusing that all together. And so, after 20 years plus writing and 15 plus years counseling, it's now like becoming more and more available to consumers, more and more available to, people just to pop on the website and be like, oh, session, or oh, Rhyme College has made a game now that I can use with students. Like, oh, let me check that out. And so it's now we're getting to that stage. But that's basically I think that's basically the summary of Rhymecology itself.
So looking at first the first part of what you do, the actual lyrical coaching. The It's fun. I just had this conversation, but the lyrical content of hip hop has always, if you kind of look at, well, what makes a track or what makes a song, iconic, and it's always the lyrical content, and I always kind of say the delivery, and then typically the production. So when those three come together, you usually have a masterpiece.
That's right. That's
But
right.
lyrics are harder than people think, and I think and especially during the golden era of hip hop, where we were just flooded with lyricists galore, and I mean, it was just almost like it was such a surplus, and it was a standard. I mean, everybody was, you had a Big L, you had a Cool G Rap, you had a J, you had a Big, you had a Nas, you had all these people that were like just lyrically at a supreme level that we just got used to. That's the way it's supposed to sound. Whereas now you can make the argument that lyrically it's not as important. Do you find that in your coaching, that that's kind of the approach, that because you kind of
Yeah.
alluded to people
Yeah.
not wanting to really use you because maybe it's like, well, I don't need no coaching, but
Right. Yeah. No, there's bigger people think they know more than they actually do at this stage. And I actually love working with seasoned writers because they think, I'm pretty good already. But then, there's just always another level. Um, so yeah, I was thinking of a lot of things when you were saying that. So yeah, number one, in the early '90s golden era, not only were there a lot of great writers, they were all just so unique. They were all so unique from
Yes.
each other. And you said Nas, you said Big L, you said Cool G. They're all they're even within East Coast lyrical rap. They're different from each other. Like Nas is telling stories backwards, right? And Big L's got the multi-syllabic punchlines that he had perfected uh, by way of Lord Finesse, who was his mentor, and then he just kind of like perfected those punchlines and setup lines. But anyway, so yeah, so the creativity that spawned hip hop, Master Ace had a line, "No biting allowed" in the symphony. No biting allowed, and we grew up no biting allowed. Like so, you took a lot of pride in that writing, and in the golden era, especially, West Coast. It doesn't matter where you're from. You were trying to create your own lane. The biggest difference that's happening now is people aren't creating their own lane. They're just following the lane that's been paved.
Yeah.
And I
Good
think
point.
people wanted to create their own lane then. There was less prosperity in hip hop then. So it was like, oh, let me try whatever you were true to, you were trying to do. But now it's like, because the pioneers and the golden era already laid the tracks, and it's like, oh, we can get some money from this. It's like, let's follow this. And so for a while now, we've been following lyrical and musical trends rather than creating our own. Like, when Kendrick came out, like he was a breath of fresh air, because like
Sure was.
that section 80 was like it didn't matter, like it was different. There were songs within songs, like the content, that everything was like, ooh. And that's what a lot of, but the thing is, that's what a lot of people were doing in the golden era. Ooh, like you could go from Das Effects, you could go to any different area, and something was fresh and unique. Like if you grew up in the Bay Area, you were like into like Mac Mall and Mac Dre and Young Black Brother records and stuff, and they were doing things that were different than LA was doing. And then that's just within the state. So anyway, so like when Kendrick came out, it was like, oh, that's something unique and different. But everyone was doing something unique and different then. So I guess that kind of all leads to the answer that yes, lyrically, definitely lyrically, we're following trends. The youth that I work with in Long Beach, like, when we'd write, they would write like they hear, and it would, the typical things that you would hear. And people aren't telling stories. I'm like, bro, I'm like, you got to tell a story, man. Look where we're living. Look, we're on South Street here, like. What I'm talking about.
Yes.
We're on Anaheim and PCH in Long Beach. Like, you got a story to tell, and you're telling me you're stacking chips, and you are, bro. Like, so I'm like, you could touch people with your words. You could really touch people with your words. Like when the message came out, and it was it 82, I think. Like when that came out, like that touched people, because all of a sudden it wasn't like, oh, we're not in the disco era anymore. Like people are pissing on the stairs and they just don't care, right? All that stuff. It was like that changed people, not because it was the greatest song ever, but it touched people like they had never heard someone rhyming about this shit that they were going through.
Yeah.
And that is still so true. That is still so important. And we're away from that. Everyone's rich. Everyone's an ex-drug dealer. Every single person. Like,
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
man, I'm like, even in the 90s, in the 90s, we were like the MCs that we grew up listening to, they were like, yo, you're ruining our neighborhood by doing that. Now it's like a badge of honor, like I used to do that, like.
Yeah.
So it's so yes, lyrically, it's hard. It's definitely hard to listen to that, and it's also hard to sometimes influence kids. Like trying to let them know that, hey, there's other ways to write. And so that is part of my job, though, to, in this book, every chapter, at the end of every chapter, it's like, yo, here's 10 great storytelling songs. Listen to these 10 great storytelling songs, and then write, work on your own. So yes, obviously you can see I'm passionate about this topic.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, and again, I will reiterate that we were spoiled. So the standard of hip hop was so high, and you just assume, if you'd have asked me in '95, well, what's hip hop going to be like in 2021? I probably would have been like, yeah, they're just still going to be storytelling, and you're going to have this and that, because there was so much of that going on. And like you said, even within certain regions, yeah, you wanted to be a storyteller, but you did not want to sound like the MC that was in your own neighborhood. I mean, you look at, I mean, like I was listening to Tribe the other day, and that line where Fife says, this goes out to all the MCs out of Queens, and he says, Onyx, LL, Run DMC, Iconelli, Nasty Nas, and the Extra P. And I'm going, look how different in Queens, how different those those
Right.
guys, like, they didn't sound nothing like each other. And even within Tribe, Fife didn't sound like Tip. It was like they didn't sound like each other either. It was like there was so much originality. And as you said, it was the expectation was that you were not biting. Like, that's the last thing you wanted to sound like.
You get thrown off the stage.
Yeah.
You get thrown off the
Right.
stage. Like, I mean, look at even within Brooklyn, like Big Daddy Kane didn't sound like Master Ace. Master Ace didn't sound like Most Def. Like Brooke, Biggie. I mean, everyone, within their own boroughs, everyone just had their own unique sound. Now it's like, it just feels to me like you can kind of like put something on, and it can be, I don't know where anyone's from anymore, and and I don't really hear many stories either. I just hear, you know, bragging about popping pills and stuff. And I hate to be like
Yeah, which
I
is
don't
a
want to be like
whole
a hater, but I'm not being a hater. But the reason why I'm kind of talking like this is because obviously I'm really passionate about it. And once in a while, like, I might be able to vent on it, but then I take that and I use that with clients, like, because
yeah.
this is up here. This is an encyclopedia of hip hop, right? Like, this is an encyclopedia. So, like, I don't need to look something up when I'm working with someone. I'm like, oh, you know what? You can't say that because in 1989, I heard Ice-T say it. Like it's like,
Yeah, right.
it's all like, there's half this brain is lyrics. So anyway, what I'm saying is I'm passionate about it, and then I can use that to help people not only write better rhymes, but also to work through things that they're going through on a personal level, in the form of
And I think it's also, it's interesting too. I mean, you alluded to, Kendrick, and, you think of a J. Cole, and I'll even throw Rhapsody in there, where I still find it is very interesting that despite the hip hop that I feel, again, not a big fan of a lot of what's going on, respect what they're doing, but it's funny how when real or something that sounds very reminiscent of real hip hop, which when again, when Kendrick came out, it was like, well, number one, he was very unique, and I'm using. I mean, when you said it, it was like, yeah, it was an excellent example, because he was West Coast, but he sounded West Coast for sure. But his storytelling was very, very rich. But he kind of had he wasn't totally a gangster rapper. He kind of had a little bit of, of that Far Side, and some of your alternative, I'll say, West Coast acts a little bit in him. And the same was true with J. Cole, where, and again, and I just posted that freestyle that he did. It was like, wow, it was like, wow, okay, guys do still do that. But you
And
know
what do you think of that? What do you think of his new album then?
it's funny. I wasn't, as to me, when he did the freestyle, I was like, oh wow, if we're gonna hear stuff like this, and I'm excited.
Right.
The whole album, it might have to grow on me. It wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, so to speak. Now maybe
I'm,
after I
I'm
listened to it
I don't
a
know.
couple.
I'm kind of in agreement. Like to move, like there's, like I was telling a couple of, I'm like, he's a great rapper. He's really good at putting words together and rapping. Didn't really move me that much. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what you said in the beginning. Like, when you got the lyrics, you got the beat and the delivery. So he has lyrics and he has the beats and he has delivery. But the fourth thing, right, to me is the emotional
Ah,
aspect.
yeah.
To me, it's moving me with your story. And like Pac's not the best lyricist of all time, but he probably moved more people than anyone.
Than anyone.
Right?
Right.
So people have kind of gotten away from that. So I kind of feel the same about about the Cole.
J. Cole. Yeah, yeah. I would definitely agree. So, okay. So segueing into again what you do as far as on the mental health side, the kids that you work with and the individuals that you work with, are these individuals that are aspiring hip hop artists, or are they individuals who are just kind of hip hop fans, or combination of the both? I mean, what is the
The
clientele?
All right, Mike. So when I was working at the mental health agency in Long Beach, Compton, and South Los Angeles, um, my clientele was usually boys, probably aging from as early as like maybe 5, 6 until about 17, 18. Um, so it was a high African American population as well as Latino. Um, and so I would say that it was a combination of both. There was a number of kids who did want to rap, um, and there was a number of kids who just really loved listening to hip hop but never thought that they could rap. So with either case, there's a great segue to bring in self-expression through writing and rhyming. So so like a lot of times, like these kids, like, they don't have many viable options in the clients that I had. They just didn't have the choices, and they didn't have healthy restaurants. There was, I mean, it was like, it's how it is. You know about that. Long Beach. You know very well. So like when I was working there, I'd be like, damn, there's nowhere I can eat if I'm on a cleanse. If I'm doing my
Yeah,
cleanse.
yeah.
So little tangent, but I'm talking about like the viable options though,
Yeah.
as far as careers, working and all that. So when they see that shiny object, when they see, oh, someone who looks like me is on this video and he's wearing this heavy fancy thing here and he's driving this, and like of course that's going to look like, ooh, I could do that, right? But they don't know about the process to get there. Perfect
Uh,
example: King Crooked Eye. So
yes.
an amazing Long Beach, probably to me the best lyricist ever to come out of Long Beach as far as
Yes, I would agree.
pen game goes. So, but I met people who knew him out there, and they said when he was young, like the age of the kids that I was working with, he was walking around with the encyclopedia in his backpack every day. Encyclopedia, writing rhymes, pulling out, learning new words. That is the level of dedication that people are trying to skip now, right? So he was like, man, how hungry you have to be. Like the kids that I work, they want to rap, but they're not hungry. They're not
Mhm.
hungry, right? So I'm that bridge. I'm that bridge, right? I'm that bridge in between. I'm like someone who's been writing for 20 years. I've had a few successes, right? So I know the King Crooked, what he had to do. I know what the kids that I work with want to do but don't do, and then I'm in the middle doing it. So I'm kind of like that bridge. Um, so I guess that's kind of a long answer to say, yeah, even if they wanted to be rappers, they weren't really understanding the steps to do it. Um, and then, they some could freestyle, some could this and that, but I'm looking at them and I'm, again, they're trying to tell me these tales, and I'm like, no, there's some steps you got to take here. And so, I would give them different techniques, different tools. I teach them, like, you can't just be rhyming just at the end. Like listen to this guy over here. Listen to where he's rhyming, and then literally breaking it down, like showing them, like, there's a science to this.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, and then the kids who didn't want to necessarily be MCs, like hip hop culture is now here. Like when we were growing up, you had to go find hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Remember the warehouse? Like there was like this many
Yeah.
pictures. Like, where's the hip hop? Like, oh, it's that
Yep.
little thing
Little
in the back.
tiny section. Right.
It's like, um, so like, so what I'm saying is like it's here now. So even if you're not trying to be an MC, like hip hop culture is so present, like you're affected by it. And so that's still what you're going to listen to mainly as a kid that I was working with. So it was easy to then incorporate that into a regular counseling session using maybe songs as examples, printing out lyrics, printing out lyrics like are you really listening to the lyric or are you just listening, do you just like the beat? And then a lot of times, oh, I just like the beat. Okay, good, because this is what he's saying here, like in case you didn't really
Yeah,
notice.
right.
And sometimes when you print out the lyrics, it's like, ooh, okay. Like, oh, I didn't really know that he was saying it in those terms. So it's actually powerful to print them and look at them.
Well, and
Um,
it's and that whenever I've done that, kind of going back to my point when you talk about delivery, you can print out, go, whoever your favorite or your chief lyricist is, go print out some of their lyrics and then try to spit them, and then it makes you realize even when you know the lyrics, the delivery once again is so important, which is kind of goes my earlier point, why it's like the content, the delivery, the production, and then how you said the passion of it too. Because like for example, Redman is an example of an MC who's extremely passionate, not like Pac, but an extremely passionate MC,
right.
lyrically at a elite level. His content, but then also his animation is very very just. I mean, that's kind of what his signature is. I mean, Red Buster would be another one that just off the top of my head. And maybe
Right.
in the back in the '90s, Sticky Fingers from Onyx was also kind of that
Animated.
same type of where if you were just reading their lyrics and then versus listening to them, it's almost like you're listening to two different things. And so
Right.
I think that's a good point as far as, yeah, go print out the lyrics and look at them. The other thing I think
Mhm.
that you said was very interesting is, again, and big shout out to Crooked Eye again, definitely best lyricist in my opinion, come out of Long Beach, was that dedication to the craft. And the podcast is called The Process of Hip Hop, partly because there is a process within hip hop.
Right.
You know,
And people are that's why I'm happy to be on here, because people are skipping the steps.
yeah,
You listen to Jordan and Kobe talk about, what they did to get to where they were. Like they never skipped a step. Like
no,
every day was a full day of practice, start to end. Like they don't skip any steps. So, you know, um, yeah, like yeah, and then the other way about printing things out though is like you can print out someone who you like, print out a verse that you really like, and then try to emulate it, try to write like that.
yeah,
For me, I printed some of the first ones I printed out were let's see, I did like AZ, Sugar Hill.
yeah,
Um, I
underrated
did
track right there too.
Fast Life, Cool G and Nas. And like,
Mhm.
cause those, like when the way they were rhyming, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, I never, like, I was West Coast, I was West Coast. And then,
Didn't
and
sound
then I'm
like
like,
that.
yeah. And then I'm like, oh, those on the block, it rock like Amadeus. I was like, wait, block, rock,
Yeah.
the-
Huh?
like
Yeah.
got hookers and heaters with the beaters. I was like, what? So yeah, so I wrote those down, and then I was like, wait, how do you get all those rhymes in there? So that was like '95. That was like really the beginning of me becoming obsessed by rhyming and lyrics.
The other thing that definitely wanted to touch on in terms of mental health, and I mean, again, with especially within the Black community, and hip hop, obviously, synonymous with the Black community. It's not something that's talked about. Again, just in uh, growing up, it was definitely not talked about. And you and I are about the same age. It was, and that was just, it was like again, taboo wouldn't be the right word, but it was just a subject that you didn't approach. And
Mhm.
so as a result, you had a lot of dysfunction in some families because people just refused to, number one, acknowledge, and then if they did acknowledge it, they weren't going to necessarily seek help. And there's also, there's an argument that you could say, well, to really or to really get to a point where you're receiving mental health, sometimes it costs. You got to have insurance, you got to have some outlets. There's not always a lot of affordable options, and so that's another thing I think that hampers. But I think it is definitely getting better. And what's funny about kind of our conversation is that there are lyrics, and rest in peace to DMX, who just passed. But it's like, you listen to some of his music, and you could definitely tell there was some demons he was battling. I mean, he talks about it in his book as well. I mean, Pac was the same way. It's like or even like an ODB. It's like we laugh about some of the things, and we kind of just pass them off, but some of those lyrics, they were talking about issues that were very, very not just systemic, but probably multi-generational things that were happening that you could probably attribute to. Again, we all have some kind of issue or some type of thing. And as you said, we all need someone to talk to. They,
Yeah.
they were expressing that in their lyrics, which again kind of goes back to the realness of
Mhm.
what they were saying and you know how powerful it was. um so that's interesting. Again, I do think it's getting better, but I think mental
Well,
health is still a
this
don't
happens
talk
to be
about.
sitting. This happens to be sitting on my desk right here. This is Book of Ryan by Royce the 5'9", one of the most therapeutic albums in hip hop that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Journeying into his childhood, talking about his dad having to do with doing cocaine, his brother, and the fighting, the abuse within the family. I mean, he has a line in here. He says, I forget what the setup line, but he says something. We all needed therapy. Like he says that. Uh, there's another tape up. Hold on. There's another tape right here. Um, the Mega Philosophy. This is Cormega's album, and he's got a track, Valuable Lessons, talking about dealing with alcohol in the home and how, they just all the things that he's gone through. And so, like, you're talking about DMX and Pac and them, like, but people are recently still doing it and doing it at a very high level. So I
Hmm.
really recommend Mega Philosophy and Book of Ryan if you want incredible MCs who are being vulnerable as well. Um, and all I can say is we all do need someone to talk to. And I was lucky enough to be able to build rapport with the parents or grandparents and the children in the African American homes that I worked in. Um, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful that I was, given that opportunity to help. Um, and it wasn't always talking about hip hop or whatever, but it was like I just was able to connect with them, and I'm very grateful that they were, allowed me to come into their home and, um, you know, have the imprint that I wanted to have.
In terms of, I mean, you said you're now doing this full time. What do you forecast as your next step? I mean, give me kind of a 1 to 2 years from now. Do you just see this continuing to expand? What do you see as the next steps?
Um, I, yeah, a lot of things
Yeah,
just went through.
yeah.
All right, first of all, the first Rhymecology with me as an artist as Rhymecology is going to be coming out this year. There's an album coming out. It's featuring. I've got tracks with Master Ace. I got tracks with Wordsworth, Mickey Fax, Napoleon the Legend.
Mm.
Like I some heavy hitters that I've been working my whole musical career to get to the stage to where I can put together the lyrics, delivery, and beat to and the relationships to be able to create something like that. Of course, I've had a number of albums before, but I never had the confidence or juice or uh beats, what like it's all come together
Come
into
together.
this Rhymecology album, which will be coming out probably probably summer or late summer, but definitely in 2021, um with a bunch of my people I grew up listening to. So I'm super proud of that. I've got a Rhymecology game, which is a hip hop therapy game, which is just this week going on sale on the Rhymecology game website. So you can get to that through either rhymecology.com or Rhymecology game website, or hip hop therapy game website. But it's an online game that therapists, teachers, counselors, parents, hip hop heads can use, like, just as we're talking. But imagine if I'm pushing a button and there's a card that's coming up that's asked you, has a hip hop prompt that's eliciting a conversation between me and you through this card. So it's the first hip hop self expression game that's been made. There's been a lot of hip hop games, not one that focuses on healthy self expression and self reflection. And so that game is now available, the Rhymecology game. So that's a big step that's happening literally this month. And so it's, and then it's going to be it's going to be continuing one-on-one coaching, helping people transform their lives through the written and spoken word, and putting all of that together with the Write Better Rhymes clothing brand that you've been seeing on DJ Premier and KRS-One, and all these guys, like put it all together, and that's Rhymecology.
So when that album comes out, man, I'm gonna need you to come back on the prod so we can go through them go
Man,
through them tracks, man, for sure,
can't
man.
wait.
But
I
man,
can't wait.
best of luck to you, my man, Rhymecology, man. Thank you so much for joining the process of hip hop, man. Again, we're gonna have him back. So if you're listening, stay tuned for part two. We'll get him back when you get this album released, man. But
Yeah.
best of luck to you, man. Thanks again.
And thank you for what you do, because like we alluded to, it's not just hip hop is not just the end result. It's the process, just like life. And I'm living proof. Things you put the true time in, you put the true work in, and you stay true to your own vision, like this can really happen. So like this album that's coming out, it's not like I just made it last year. This is a 20-25 year
Yeah,
process
in
to
the
get to
making.
this stage, to
Yeah.
where I can do tracks with some of these lyrical legends, like
Mhm.
and if I do say hang with them, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Yeah,
hanging this
yeah.
time. All right. Look, hey, process of hip hop, great to connect with you. I'm always here to chat with you, man. Rhymecology, LBC. Let's do this.
Yes, sir. Peace.